Hello and welcome to the Dungeon Masters Guild House. I am your host, Matthew Whitby, and I am privileged to be joined by Jeff Stevens. Thank you so much for taking the time to join me.
Matthew, thank you for asking me on the show. It's a pleasure, and I'm honored to be on it.
No, it's like this. I was doing my usual sort of deep dive of all my guest sort of products and stuff like that, and I remembered that funnily enough, the Villains and Layers 4 was the first time that actually I collaborated on that project, and that was the first time that I actually it was a non-royalty project for me, which was both very exciting and very new for me. So first of all, thank you for that. That was a fun experience.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
yep. Yeah, I don't split royalties very often. I try to pay everyone up front so that they can do something with that money.
Yeah.
Because I could have a project that bombs. Like let me just give an example. My recent Allies, Enemies, and Quests that I released has sold 12 copies since it released last week. And had people been royalties on those, they would have been pretty upset. Whereas, if I can pay up front, give you guys money to put towards art or whatever, that's great. All the negative feedback and everything is on me then, as far as if a project bombs or something. So
yeah, I can imagine it's very different taking on a sort of like project in like a project being a project manager, as opposed to just being like, this is something that I'm just sort of working on.
Right.
And no,
and in a lot of cases, those. I'm sorry.
No,
in a
no,
lot
no,
of cases, those. I'll put a lot of money into those as far as paying people for editing and commission the cover and that type of thing. And so it's really hard to recoup that investment when you're splitting royalties out with other people. So that's one of the other reasons I do that.
So I will say, so before we get too much into the nitty gritty, because that was off to a strong start. I love it. But for anyone who's listening who may not be aware of some of the stuff that you do, Jeff, what sort of products would you say that you're known for?
Let's see. I like writing adventures. That's my forte. But I've also developed the Savage Encounters line. So I've got the Savage Encounters in the Savage Seas, Encounters in the Savage Frontier, that whole line there, and along with the Villains and Layers supplements, where there's 4 of those now. And one thing I've learned that everyone should listen to is that too many of the same project do not sell well as more come out. So Villains and Layers took off great. We're on number 4 now, which I thought was going to be it's all undead creatures. And so I thought that was just going to take off, but that didn't take off well at all. And I'm seeing that also with Allies, Enemies, and Quests, that I think the NPC market is really oversaturated. And
It's that curious thing with products on the DMsGuild is it is really hard to sort of predict success. And sometimes what is it with the sort of series that are part of I guess a chain or like a collection and stuff like that. It's kind of interesting that like there's not always the like if one copy sells 100 and the next one may sell like 75, and then you sort of see that sort of
exactly.
effect.
Unless there's such a big difference in the product, you're coming out of left field with something that's completely different, then you just keep that in mind when you're doing something. Is really look for originality, something you're going to bring different to the table that's really going to spark interest with other people. And sometimes that's hard to do. I thought Allies, Enemies, and Quests was going to be sell splendidly, and so far it hasn't. And I understand probably I overdid it with the NPCs. Looking on to my next project, and we're going from there.
Yeah, nice. So actually,
I keep going.
I can't stop.
No.
So that kind of leads nicely into the next question. So, like, when did you officially start? Like, how long have you been creating content for the DMsGuild?
Started creating June of 2016. It came in a little late. MT Black, I think, Tony Patrica, and some others were already on the guild. And so my desire at that time, having seen the things that they had created, was to better them. Okay. To take over that spot. And so every time MT released an adventure, I was like, oh, dang it. My next one's going to top it. It's going to do better than his. I'm going to rank higher than his. I never did, but that was my inspiration. That was my goal that drove me to try and create better adventures. And MT's a great guy. I've talked to him. He's helped me quite a bit. One of the things he first mentioned to me was, use an evocative cover, and maybe one of my covers wasn't great. He goes, well, maybe you should try something different. So I did, and he said, yeah, that's better. He really helped me along when I first started. And when I started, I reached out to him and I was like, is this guy even going to talk to me? Because here I was, this lowly DMsGuild creator at the time. We didn't have the Discord. Twitter was pretty low as far as usage. The D&D and RPG community has just boomed since 2016 as far
Yeah.
as social media and that type of thing. It's just amazing how much it's grown. But yeah, MT came back to me and said, "Hey, Jeff, how's it going?" And so we've kind of talked here and there every once in a while. Tony Petreca's a great guy too. Patrick Pullen, just so many great people in the industry.
Yeah, I think it's like things are with the DMs Guild. I think being involved in any community, you always assume that the people who are like the people who are like creating fantastic products, and you sort of see at the top of like the best selling charts. You assume that they're like celebrities, that they're in your community they kind of are. That you kind of assume that they're gonna be so busy, but realistically, they have as much time as you kind of do in writing stuff. So it's
Right.
always nice to sort of like get that engagement and sort of touch base with people.
And it's I'd love to be more engaged with other people. I know the Discord servers out there, and trying to manage Facebook and Twitter is enough for me. Plus a day job, plus writing everything. Trying to stay on the Discord. There's so many sub channels in the Discord that's ridiculous trying to keep there. I'll go in there maybe once a week or so and look through things and try and make a comment here and there. But there's a good group in there, and so I think most everybody's comments are pretty on spot.
So
And the people who are coming in, the people who are coming in now, as far as RPG writing, like um, the new people that are coming into Discord and everything. You get this whole group of people who now have this wisdom to share. When in 2016 when I started, that wasn't available, and so it just keeps growing and growing and growing. Steve Fiddler, Laura Harshberger, is that how it's pronounced? Excuse me, Laura, if
yeah.
pronounced it incorrectly. Brian Holmes, those people in that, and Ann Gregerson, Ann's amazing. Kat Evans. So yeah, having their knowledge and everything to share with other people, you've got the advantage on me, let's say. Because when I came into this, I was blind. I jumped in, wrote an adventure, thought I was going to sell 100 copies in the first day. It didn't. And now you guys have these areas to bounce ideas off of people, and that wasn't available when I started. So that whoever starts now is definitely in the with an advantage. Starts with an advantage.
Yeah. And
if they're reaching out to people and talking to them.
I think it comes with the idea of like now stepping into sort of like charted land. So like obviously when other people started this out, it was all the unknown, the Wild West and all that. And now you have enough time to sort of you learn quicker from the mistakes of yourself and others. And if people are willing to say, oh yeah, no, I kind of messed up here, then you can sort of like gain the experience of a failure without going through the failure yourself. In a
exactly.
sort of, quick way. Which actually I wanted to kind of chat about a little bit of your adventures then, if you don't mind.
Sure.
When it comes to like your creative process, where do your ideas sort of stem from? Like I noticed recently you had the was it the Scourge of the Night Game sort of series of adventures, like a chain.
Oh yeah. I had that idea for several years, just because I like bards, and I thought it would be really cool to have a kick-ass female bard be the bad guy throughout the whole series. And I wrote that actually for a convention for an ALCCC content, but the convention fell through, and so I was left with it. And so then I converted it to, as best as I could, community content, so that anybody could run it. But I don't know where the idea actually came from her. I just had this vision in my head. For her, a half-masked woman causing havoc, and this whole adventure built around her. But other ideas, a lot of times, will come from media, will come from images. I'll see a picture and I'll be like, that would be a cool adventure idea. Actually, I get ideas from playing my home game. I've got a buddy who's running us through a series of little adventures that he's writing, and one of them started out at War Turtle Brewery. It was a brewery. It's called War Turtle Brewery. And so I took out my wallet, gave him $1, slipped it to him, and he picked it up. He goes, "What's this for?" I said, "I just bought the rights to War Turtle Brewery from you, so I'm going to write an adventure for it." So actually, he and I are actually writing that adventure. So hopefully we hope to have that out in about a month or so.
Nice.
But it's a goofy one. It's drinking games and a big party, and through a brewery that's all got a bunch of mayhem magic going on in it. It should be fun.
I think it's certainly nice to have like the sort of the range that you can sort of do with adventures, because not every adventure needs to be like a horror one or like a particularly like serious one, and being able to sort of have that I guess skill set or like that flexibility to be able to say, okay, well now let's reel it in and have some fun with this one.
Yeah, I like role play adventures a lot. I just like the way the characters interact with the players and the characters interact with the dungeon master and the NPCs.
Mm-hmm.
I just think it's a great way to challenge players, better than combat, in my opinion.
And I guess like an interesting question then is like, so how do you particularly like are there any things that you do in particular to make it a NPC in your adventure easily accessible for the DM to be able to sort of pick up and still have the same personality as intended?
Well, I gave the backstory for the Nightingale in each of those adventures to let them, be able to read that each time, and just try and give them a backstory that makes sense. I think, and something they can connect to.
Okay, cool. And then I take it if you kind of understand their motivations, you can sort of like try and
if you can connect to that NPC as a DM, understand their motivations, that type of thing. I think it's really going to bring more to the game table as you play it.
And I guess so. Going through the catalog and stuff of all these sort of adventures you've written, is there any ones that sort of stand out in your mind as one that you're sort of like particularly proud of with the how things stand out?
I can't complain about Happy Jack's Funhouse and the Madhouse Tasha's Kiss. Those two have been great. I worked with Rimley Farr on those, and Rimley has a great mind. He's a great writer. Mm-hmm. So those two have really stood out as far as performance. But the ones that I wrote, I love the Nightingale trilogy, but probably my favorite that I've written is The Night of the Rise. I don't know if you ever saw that one or read it or anything like that. I've run it several times. I've run it at a convention, and at the convention, actually, they ran through it with straight role playing. There was no combat involved and everything. So every time I run it, it's like a different outcome.
Yeah.
Because it's a large chunk of it is role play. I'll just tell you that I'll give the big thing away here.
Oh, well.
The adventuring party comes along and is sleeping at night, and they overhear this speech behind them. Another campsite, several hundred yards away, is floating on the breeze. They hear this speech, and it sounds like it's the guy that they're supposed to kill, the bandit captain. Well, they go and they 9 times out of 10, it's going to be a combat. They go in there, they sneak in there, they start shooting and killing everybody, and they find out that they're actually performers doing a dress rehearsal because the performers are performing a play at the bandit captain's lair the next day.
Okay.
And so they then have the script, the contract to perform, and the outfits to go in and actually perform the play. And if they perform the play well, they'll get a one-on-one sitting with the bandit captain who they are trying to slay or deal with however they wish.
Yeah.
So it's always really fun to see that what did we just do? They kill the performers.
That's such a clever premise for an adventure.
And then to actually, see your players have their characters perform the play and do whatever they wanted, with that is really fun too.
Nice.
So that's probably my favorite to run.
So I guess to loop back to an earlier question, then where did the inspiration for that adventure come from?
That came from my home game. Okay. When I first started DMing when 5th edition came out. Up until then, I started playing D&D in the 1980s. Mm-hmm. I'm the old guy. I'll be 49 in a couple weeks. So I played all the original. Thank you. I played all the original stuff. Skipped 3, 3.5, 4, whatever else was before 5th edition. Came back into 5th edition. My brother and a group of his buddies from work were playing D&D, and he invited me to the game. I said, it's been a while, but why not? Let's go do some guy stuff. And so I got together with them and started playing. And after that campaign was done, the DM then said, okay, so I'm done. Does anybody else want to DM? I'd never DM'd before, but I thought, heck, why not? Let's give it a try. So that's when we started. We had finished up 4th edition, so that's when we started 5th edition. And I based my campaign off of Metallica and Primus songs. I don't know if you're familiar with those bands.
I'm familiar with Metallica. No.
Yeah, just Ride the Lightning and Battery and just all the Metallica songs titles. The Thing That Should Not Be. Those are just great ideas for little sub adventures within a campaign. And so I can't remember exactly how the whole adventure came up with that, but it was when they were traveling from one location to another, they had to perform for somebody. Or no, I'm sorry, they ran into these performers, and so then they had to take on the script to perform to go to the next spot. So it was within that campaign. I don't really remember exactly how the idea came to me. Probably just one of these things like, oh, this might be cool. Let's
Yeah.
have them kill some performers and see if they can do the play themselves. So
No, it's kind of fascinating to sort of to hear the I guess the inspiring events behind like some of these products, and it's the kind of case of like players like the opportunity to throw on a disguise and to like sneak in, and it's kind of got all these sort of like uh I don't want to say tropes, but like sort of like adventure hooks that people can naturally gravitate towards and enjoy.
right.
Um, I was like, kind of had like another question about a lot of the so a lot of the adventures that you sort of write and stuff like that, you kind of write them as like almost like you function as a co-author. Um,
Some of them, yes.
do you mind like talking about what how exactly you navigate like writing an adventure as like a co-author,
So you mean like the ones I do with Rimley?
or just any of them? Yeah.
Yeah, for those, I pay Rimley a flat fee for writing, and
Mhm.
then I give him a small portion of the royalties, just as that goes. I think it's fair. I can't pay 10 cents a word
Yeah.
for DM's Guild writing. It's just too much
Mhm.
to try and recover after you're putting money into a cover and editing and commissioned art, that type of thing. So it's
Yeah.
just 10 cents a word is just too high, especially when you're losing 50% off the bat,
Mhm.
and then you have to pay taxes on top of that. In the United States, taxes are pretty heavy,
Yeah.
so you end up with very little pocket change left after you look like you made some decent money. But what I did with Tasha's Kiss, I said, okay, Rimley, I've got this idea. I'll write the intro. I'll write the hook. And I've got these rooms that I want, and this is the whole premise behind the big bad.
Mhm.
And so, I said, I want a mirror room. I want this kind of room, this and this. So he just kind of developed those off of my thoughts. I've read Rimley's writing before. If you haven't read it, pick up some of his stuff. It's fantastic writing, and so I was always inspired to work with him. And it worked out that he wrote Tasha's Kiss for me. Then we came back with Happy Jack's Funhouse. Um, and when I say he wrote it for me, he wrote the majority of the inner pieces of it.
Mhm.
I wrote the intro, I wrote the beginning or the conclusion, and then I kind of tied things together.
Mhm.
What's written isn't exactly what he gave me because I put my own spin on things,
Yeah.
adjust it differently. And so that's writing with a coworker is great. I've written with uh, Alan Patrick,
Mhm.
Alan Tucker, a couple others I'm working with now, and some projects I've been involved with that they wanted a co-writer, and I read what they wrote, and I'm like, dude, you don't need a co-writer. This is perfect the way it is.
Yeah.
Um, so then I'll come in and help with editing or commission layout or commission artwork or that type of thing for it. But it's fun to do
Mhm.
because you can really have some really cool ideas bouncing off each other. And because what Rimley came up with, I would have never thought of for some of these things. And it's just cool to see a different spin on what I would have written versus what
Mhm.
he wrote. And I'm like, well, his is better. His version's better than what I would have written.
So I guess as like a side point then, it's like, so at what point, like when you're coming up with an idea, do you think, okay, well, this is something that I know someone could write better than, or just like I would rather have, like, is it just like, yeah,
A lot of it has to do with how busy I am.
okay, yeah,
You know, if I'm managing multiple projects, with the villains and layers, the encounters
Mhm.
products, writing a CCC adventure, doing other things, but I've got this idea that I want to get on paper,
Yeah,
and I start writing it out, but I don't have time to fill in all the pieces.
Mhm.
I may come out and ask somebody, hey, you want to work with me on this? This is the agreement. And a lot of times it works out really well. Um, I want to write my own adventures. I like telling my own stories in my
Yeah,
own way, but sometimes it's just too difficult. I have a couple in my head that are just going to be for me that I
yeah,
just write. Others are some ideas that I think other people could really help me with, you know. Um, and sometimes I do it just to give other people exposure within the
Mhm.
market. Like Rimley Farr, like I said, his stuff is great, but people may not know who he is. And so I was hoping that by working with him, other people may check out his other stuff, his other
Yeah.
products.
No, okay,
And
no, that's awesome. It is good mix of it being like a logistical solution to like just to being so busy, and yeah, bring sort of more people into the community then.
yeah,
Um,
because when I first started writing, and publishing on the DMs Guild, I thought, I'll do this, this piece, this adventure. Okay, well then I'll come up with this, and I found I was just addicted to it. I couldn't stop. I wanted to keep producing. I had so many ideas of things, and trying to find the time to do it all is difficult. And so I've kind of become this producer for other projects, within my line, with my name on it, and working with some great people. I mean, I can't even tell you how many people I've worked with as far as writing, art, cartography, editing, but everyone's been fantastic that I've worked with. So I thank you to them.
yeah.
Whoever's helped me get where I am now, I greatly appreciate it.
No, so keeping on with the idea of like a positive note then. So when it comes to like a new project, is there any particular parts that stand out as your favorite?
Of a new project, okay.
Yeah.
Probably my favorite of a new project is commissioning the art and the maps,
Okay.
because I like to see, I may have a mental image of something, what I think it should look like, but the artist comes back with something different. But having that, even if it's stock art that I'm using, having that piece to associate with what I've written,
Yeah.
I think really ties the adventure together. You can have a great adventure with great writing that may not be noticed because there's no art in it. And I think this was brought up on a Facebook post once recently. But if you've got some art in there that really ties the adventure together, it makes sense for the DM. It's something they can show the players as they're playing. And I love art. I mean, I've spent a lot on art, and cartography. Worked with Elvin Tower, CH Guys, Aaron Evans, some great art. Chris Bissett has done some cartography for me, and the artists. I just keep finding new artists to work with, and that's not to flaunt, that I can do that. That's making the product that I want to make.
Yeah.
To show it off, to make it look the way I want it to look. Plus supporting other people in the RPG community. That's always been a big thing of mine is I'm going to make money doing this. I'm going to put money back into the RPG community, the creator community, to help others who are trying to do what I'm doing. And so I'm proud of that. I'm proud of that. I'm at this point where I can do that, or I can spend money to make these products and pay people to write, to edit, make art for me, that type of thing.
Yeah.
And so,
oh, sorry.
no, so sometimes I'll even commission the cover piece for the adventure or the supplement before I even start it, just because that imagery, I think, gives me a direction where I want to go with it. So that's probably my favorite piece of it.
Okay, so I guess to sort of build on that a little bit then. So like even before starting a project, you have the cover. What sort of like directions do you give the artists? Is it you typically like quite loose instructions, or like how prescriptive do you kind of go?
What I'll do is I'll try and find images on Google that match or are close to what I want, and then I'll give them instructions. Okay, well, this but not this. This kind of hat, but remove that hat, make it a tricorn hat or something like that. That type of thing. And as much detail as I can as far as description, or I may try and sketch out something, which I'm a horrible artist. That's why I hire people.
Yeah.
To kind of give them an idea, and a lot of times that works out really, really well. But I've definitely learned as I've gone. This whole hobby is a learning, process from day one.
Yeah.
And I don't think you ever stop learning. There's no. I've said this in other podcasts. There's no correct way to write an adventure, but there are a lot of wrong ways.
Yeah.
So each of us have our own style. We don't all want to match the same format or style of adventure as somebody else. We all want to see different writing, different things, but also you want to keep kind of a base format so that the DMs don't have to try and figure out from adventure to adventure what's what.
It's funny that you mentioned that, because recently I've been chatting to a lot of people who have never published on the DMsGuild and are looking to kind of get their first start. And that's one thing they kind of ask is like they're asking for like is there like a template? And I say that there are. You can find like nice events, but
there are.
you kind of have to like every adventure kind of needs to take that template and change it to fit the adventure. And by the end of it, the template shouldn't necessarily always look the same, regardless of the
Right.
adventure needs.
Yeah, don't use the DMsGuild template. Don't use that black, white, red one.
Yeah.
That's ugly.
But like
mine's based on that. If I just change the fonts.
It's funny. So like I think like it's kind of like for me, I kind of based my adventures on the Tales of the Yawning Portal because that was like one of the first hardcover books I had. And for me, it kind of like I don't know why I was about to say soul bonded, but like my idea of like shaping an adventure kind of merged with what these books were. So I'll be curious to see if like actually I don't know like when the way you sort of lay out your adventures, is it based on like some of the adventures that you quite like or?
Boy, I don't know now. I've done this for so many. I've used the same template for a couple of years now. That's really hard to say. I always change things up just a tad. You'll see the whole boxes or the boxes like what they know or what they want, that type of thing. So I may add that to some. The scaling suggestion box is always great. If you're writing a 6th level adventure, write it for 5 to 7 also. Yeah. Just put scaling suggestions in there. That gives you a wider audience. The terrain features or that box there is good sometimes. But I like I said, I think mine is based off the basic template off the DMsGuild. I just changed the fonts and some of the other pieces of it.
I mean,
so it gives you a good. But one piece of advice that I have for people who want to start writing adventures is go to the DMsGuild, buy some of the top selling adventures, buy some of the highest rated adventures. They may not be the best selling adventures because high rated pay what you want isn't going to show up on the list. And review those, read them. What made them that good of an adventure, and then buy some of the ones that aren't rated that well, and compare the two, and then take your spin and use that template for that good adventure and put your spin on it and see, that way you're not starting from square one. Basically, you've got an idea of what it should look like and what worked well for that person.
I mean, the benefit of writing towards the DMsGuild is you do have this wealth of successful adventures. You have the Adventure League line and stuff like that, which is it would be interesting like to go back or ask people whose first adventure writing has been within the Adventure League format rather than something, just because it's that sort of like that the having that sort of like nice one, just having like a format to sort of plug things into is a little bit less daunting than staring at like a blank screen.
I've written both, and I much prefer non-AL writing over Adventures League writing. There's rules and things within the AL template that you have to follow, whereas community content, you can put your own spin on things. You can make things a page or more. There's this whole talk about an encounter should be one page only, and you don't want to have to flip pages. Well, that may not apply to everything. You may have something that lasts a little longer. You need that detailed information in there that you're not going to keep away from the DM. That's going to make it necessary to run.
Yeah. And obviously some encounters are a little bit more complex, or they sort of have cascading effects that you kind of need a little bit more room to breathe.
Correct.
So flipping the coin then around to the sort of the other side. Are there any particular part of a project that is your least favorite?
Writing.
Okay. Really? Okay.
Yes, because I may have the entire adventure in my head, as far as what I want, how I want it to play out, but then you have to spend 10 to 24 hours writing it on MS, in Microsoft Word, and that's a lot of extra time to go from start to finish, and you just want to. I just want it out. So I think there was a Stephen King movie called Tommyknockers where somebody they could hook up this thing to their head and they would type out while they were sleeping. That's what I want. I want to be able to type a story while I'm sleeping. So sometimes the typing can really bother me, because I think so far ahead sometimes, and I'll skip spots.
So does that sort of reflect your writing style then? Do you sort of like, you don't write in an order, you sort of write the sections as the sort of...
Yeah.
Okay.
Sometimes, yep. I'll jump from one section to another section, come back to the other section after I, think about what I did in the fourth section and say, okay, well, I need to go back to the third section, add this to make the fourth section make sense. And so, yeah, I jump all over the place. Yeah, very seldom do I outline. I may make some quick notes as far as what I think is going to happen in each one, but never do I really do a full blown outline.
Okay.
I like the writing to come, the adventure to come as I write, basically.
Yeah.
And so, what I have in my head may not be what ends up on paper because the NPCs may change something, or just more of a I like to think of myself as a storyteller writing, or storytelling adventure writer, where I'm trying to tell a story at the same time as put in the mechanics, which is really hard to do sometimes when you're writing mechanics, and then go to try and write evocative box text. It just doesn't always flip the switch easily.
So I guess to drill a little bit deeper then into like the more nitty gritty, so between like the mechanical writing or like the box text, or is there any part of that project that you find comes naturally to you?
No. No. It's all a process. I mean, the mechanical writing took a long time to write. I still don't write it exactly the way WotC does. Which I think is okay. If WotC ever asked me to write for them, I would certainly learn how to write mechanically in their style. But again, you've got different styles of writers on the DMsGuild, and I think it's okay. As long as the mechanics are solid and people can understand the way they're written, I think it's cool. Evocative text, box text, that type of thing can be difficult at times because I tend to be wordy. When I could write it simpler, sometimes I use too many words, and that shows in editing. Chris Walls, Alan Tucker, Jenny Loveday's done some editing for me, and Hidden Dave, all those guys can say, yeah, you could probably change how you write first rather than send it to editing like this, or this is what you need to do. Yeah. So yeah, evocative writing can be tough sometimes.
Okay. I guess it's kind of interesting to like hear the what people like about different parts of the project. Just because I think where I'm at is very much like I enjoy the writing, and then it's the other parts of the that I see as like, oh, I guess I have to go out of my way to now tuck this into a layout, and then it's fighting with the layout for X number of things, or I've started doing. Oh, sorry.
No. Maybe I should have said the typing. Maybe I should have said that.
Yeah,
the writing.
The
typing.
The typing and stuff like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. No. It's kind of it's fascinating to hear, and that's what I kind of like about having these opportunities to chat with people, is just to hear about like how people's processes are different. And actually, I do have I was going to say like a longevity question, but I don't know if that's the right way of phrasing it. How do you find like writing so moving away from adventures and more towards like encounters, or savage encounters of like villains?
Yeah.
Or, how do you find that sort of writing a chain of a product, I guess?
What do you mean?
So I guess the bit of like I guess keeping it fresh for each sort of product, or just keeping the sort of like ideas or inspiration. Like I imagine, like again, writing a one-off adventure is quite different from writing like the third part in.
Yeah, well, with the Villains and Lairs projects and those NPC projects, the inspiration comes from art. I'll go out to Drive-Thru RPG or DMsGuild and find art images that I think are inspiring, and so I'll write about those. And that's also how I submitted for writers. I would send you guys or the folks who were writing for me images to choose from. Say, okay, I've got these images. Which one would you want to write about? And I just kind of pass those along because I want the writer to be inspired by something. And so I think that having that image really helps them, inspire them to write that NPC.
Yeah.
So yeah, again, art's a really big inspiration for that. So switching gears between adventure writing and the supplements is I don't write as much for the supplements anymore. Allies and Enemies, I wrote a lot for that one, but like Villains and Lairs 4, I think I may have done 2 or 3 pieces for that. Again, it has to do with time, how much time I've got, because when I'm dealing with sending products to editors and then throwing them into layout as soon as I get them back to make everything go smooth, not having to wait on a release date. Just yeah, sometimes it can be overwhelming.
Okay, and I imagine the sort of having like a particular theme. So again, was moving from like um, the Underdark to the Savage Seas. I imagine that
Right.
sort of being a completely different location kind of keeps
Yeah.
things fresh to a certain extent.
Yeah. Yeah. And yeah. And again, Savage Seas, for my writing that I did on that, I wrote up the turtle Badoo that's got the village on the back, and everything like that. And my brother and I worked on that together, and I just had that idea for a village. I'm sure other people had the same idea,
Mm-hmm.
put a giant turtle with a village on its back, but that was fun writing.
Yeah.
Sometimes you'll get a project. I'm sure everybody's had these that sometimes they're a slog to write. It's like, oh, do I have to keep writing this? When can I be done with it? And then others, you just start writing and you don't want to stop because you
Yeah.
keep having these great ideas. And so, yeah, I'm sure everybody can relate to that
No,
as far as having
that's
fun things to write and not fun things to write.
yeah. I suppose it can shift from. I imagine if it's like if it's your own project and it's not fun to write, you can just sort of like put it on the back burner.
Yeah,
Whereas if you're engaged in like a collaboration, you hit a point where you're just like, oh, then you still at least you have that deadline looming that you kind of like. I probably still should write this
right.
at the very least. Um,
Exactly.
so I guess sort of reflecting over your experience as a whole, then, what are some of the lessons that you kind of wish you learned earlier?
Okay. Um, First is that to understand that success in this hobby may take time. And that success is based on your definition of success. If you feel that publishing an adventure is success for you, great. If you want to turn this into a secondary income or a full-time income, that's going to take time.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, when I published my first adventure, which was The House of the Midnight Violet in June of 2016, I was expecting 100 sales day one, and then 200 by the end of the month, and
Yeah.
that type of thing. And it doesn't happen. Very rarely do you have an adventure or a product that's just going to sell like hotcakes.
Mm-hmm.
You could write 10 adventures and one of them, or your first one does great, and you write 3 adventures after that, and each one of those bombs, just because you don't know what the industry or what the consumers are looking for.
Yeah.
It could be something different, could be something completely different than what you think is awesome. This is a great adventure. What a great idea. You put it out there in the market to sell, and just very slow turnaround on it. So, persistence is key in this industry if you want to make money or a secondary income at it. Um, you just got to keep pushing out content. But again, like I said, that depends on your definition of success. If you're successful just putting something on there and you see people downloading it for free, 14,000 people download it for free, and you're like, yeah, that's cool. I'm successful and great. It's all going to depend on what your definition is.
So I guess to make it a little bit more personal, then. So what is your definition of success then?
Well, I have free products that get downloaded for free, and I have paid products. My definition for success is when the product makes back its budget.
Okay. Yeah.
After that, I feel like, okay, what I've invested in it, it's made its return on investment, and from here on out, it's profit.
Mm-hmm.
And so it tells me that enough people liked it to actually have paid for the production of it.
Yeah.
And then after that, it's just income. Good reviews. Now, this is actually number 2 of what I've learned is that accept reviews for what they are. They are other people's opinions that may or may not be good opinions, because you could have somebody play your adventure. Their table had a fantastic time with it. You get a 5-star review. If somebody else come back and say, well, my players asked about, so-and-so's mother and if they loved them, and that wasn't written in the book, so I'm going to give you 3 stars.
Yeah.
Like, what, you can't, as a writer, you cannot predict what's going to be needed at a table. And so, that type of thing, that hurts to see that. You may want to respond, well, why is that? Who would have ever thought they were going to ask about the mother? But you just leave it and you go on. You learn from it and move on.
I think that's one of the things as well, which is kind of sometimes challenging about adventure writing in particular, is like how much is enough information? Like how handholdy do you want to be for the DM to be like, this is this person's entire life, these are all their childhood friends, or do you want to be like, you're gonna have to improv some things?
And that's because each DM has a different style.
Yeah.
And no adventure is going to play the same way at another table. It's like a fingerprint. Each time it's run, it's going to be different.
Yeah.
Some nuance of it is going to change. The DM may change the way it's written. Say they don't want it at a carnival, they want it at some kind of picnic or something. They're going to make changes to it to make it fit their own campaign. And so, basically what we're doing is we're providing a framework for the DM, to use at their table. Doesn't have to be perfect, as long as the information is there. If you look at a lot of the Adept or the Adventures League stuff, that their stuff is really compressed. They leave a lot up to the DM to kind of run with, and they provide enough information, but they don't provide all the information. So, I think in my non-AL writing, I'm providing more information to the DM than they may need, but I think it's okay. And see, that also comes up with playtesting.
Yeah.
If you send an adventure out for playtesting, 5 different DMs are going to run that 5 different ways. And if they say, well, your box text here was too long, another one may say, well, this box text could have been longer. I could have read more to them, or why did you use 3 horses when you should have used 4? And the other one said, we didn't even use the horses.
Yeah.
So playtesting, as long as your mechanics are good and your writing's good, if you have an editor go through there and they're reviewing your mechanics, depend more on that than you do playtesting, because like I said, playtests can just be all over the place. I find the best playtesting is one that I run, so I can see how it runs based on how I've written, and then I'll catch things that I may have missed. But DMs have to take responsibility and run the adventure and be a DM.
Yeah. I think with playtesting, you try your best to try and take the aggregate response, and especially in some cases where you can say oh yeah, no, there was a I don't know, there was an important item that they needed to find, and you put a skill check in there, so there's a failure state. Right. And we were running
yes.
I don't know, an all rogue party, so we had no, it's okay, well maybe that's something I can keep, but you learn these sort of things of trying to not catch yourself.
That's one thing is avoid putting skill checks in when things need to be found.
Mm-hmm.
If you put something in there that has to be found in order for the adventure to progress, you've got a skill check in there, they fail, that's a failed adventure.
So I think one thing that I've tried to do is identify when I have those and turn them on their head a little bit to make it so I don't know, if there's a trail of blood, they can see the trail of blood. That's not hard, but
right.
There'll be some sort of I don't know, a skill check to involve you can identify that it's 3 different people's blood, all sort of or something to that effect.
Give one base clue, and then they can learn clues from that.
Mm-hmm.
Or if the clue that you've got a skill check associated with needs to come up somewhere else too, so they have another chance to find it. But investigative writing is tough. To write an investigation adventure.
So what was it? One of the last ones I wrote was an investigation one. So it was it Volo's Guide to Getting Murdered? That was.
That looks good.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was a challenge one, because essentially we had to write it 4 times because we tried to tie it in with Dragon Heist. And I think so. I guess to bring it back to the idea of playtesting, how exactly do you reach out with groups to sort of get people interested? Is it the case of you just have a network of DMs, or?
I have a few. A lot of my stuff is only playtested by me.
Mm-hmm.
Some stuff has never been playtested. Let's see. No, both Happy Jacks and Madhouse I ran the playtests on those, but they were in early development, so the updates weren't playtested. But as you can see, the mechanics, I think the editor did a great job of mechanics. They sell well.
Mm-hmm.
It just shows you how much you really need to invest in playtesting.
Mm-hmm.
Again, if your mechanics and your writing's good, if you get a solid editor that knows mechanics, and they'll catch most of that stuff before a playtest will, because some playtest section or the playtesters may run it a completely different way than what it's written.
I think as one thing that I've tried to I don't know if you feel the same in the idea that when I come to write adventures, I don't necessarily, but I try to treat them as modular in the idea that what I write, put down, may just be taken and placed somewhere else in a campaign.
Oh yeah. Most of my stuff is generic.
Yeah. So, okay. I guess that's so you and generic to the point where it's not set in the Forgotten Realms, untied. Okay.
What I'll do is a lot of times I'll write a generic location, and I'll say if you want to place this in the Forgotten Realms, use here.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you want to place this in Curse of Strahd, use here.
Okay.
Or in the Underdark, use here.
Yeah.
But there's so many people that are running their own homebrew games, their home campaigns, that I feel it works well for me just to write in a generic location. That way I don't have to worry so much about the lore being correct.
Yeah.
I can let the DMs put their own spin on the lore.
No. It's interesting to because there is the sort of the 2 approaches to the DMsGuild, which is the completely setting agnostic, or to lean so hard into the lore that it's.
Well, that's you've been told that WotC is looking for writers on the DMsGuild, and those closer you can stick to the lore of WotC, tie them into the current books, um, and match their mechanics or their writing style, the better chance you'll have of getting in. I would love to write for WotC, but that's not my goal. I mean, that's one goal. Let's say that. My goal is
you're not gonna
to
say no.
right. No. I would write for WotC. If they're listening, I would write for you, WotC. But my goal is to produce adventures that people can enjoy, that I'll enjoy writing. And so that's what I do.
No, okay, awesome. No, that's amazing. So to almost rewind. So some of the lessons that you wish you learned earlier. There was the two. There was the I'm drawing
What did I say? Let's see. I had them written down. To understand the success in the hobby may take time. As far as if you want to become monetize this hobby. And then the second one was never accept a review, or just accept reviews for what they are, is other people's opinions.
Yeah. And I was going to say, do you have any third or anything beyond those two?
I'm sure I did, but I can't remember now.
No, it's like honestly,
I've got all kinds of opinions on this hobby, but
honestly, those are both sort of solid advice, and I think it can, getting those sort of first reviews of like some of your products can be the sort of like making breaking points of like motivation. Where it's just like, okay.
And probably the third thing is write what you want to write.
Yeah.
Write what sparks interest in you. If you see something that's on the guild that's doing really well, and you just want to write it to tail off of that product, to try and make something similar. If it's not fun for you to write, don't do it. Now, if you're having fun doing it, yes, then do it.
Yeah, I think you can definitely tell, like with certain projects and stuff, like you can definitely see which products have been like a labor of love, and it does bleed through into the product.
Yeah, and your labor of love may not sell. You may not make a lot of money, but you've done your part to make yourself happy as far as writing something that you thought was excellent. And kudos to you if you've done it.
And the products have a long lifespan. They're going to be on the DMsGuild like forever, and every time you release a new product, you may get like a bump in sale of some of the older stuff. And that's another
lesson 4. No. Put tags into your adventures to your other adventures, your other products. If you ever bought one of my products, you'll see at the very last page I've got like links and photos of a lot of my other products, so that somebody going through there may say, "Oh, well, that looks cool."
Yeah,
may never have seen it on the guild because it's no longer in the top list or anything like that. But if they see, they see this clown with a big old set of teeth on the front cover, they're like, "Okay, well, let's check that one out," or anything else. So always promote your own products within your products that you're releasing.
It's like there's probably like there's a whole like hour podcast I could feel with like the ins and outs of like shaping your product page. Or like this, like getting like
another thing is I wish I knew how to create decent product pages on the DMsGuild. I don't know HTML. I'm all just copy and paste from Word, drop in a picture here, try and make it usable. But some of these people, like Oliver Clegg, just released the Standing Forlorn or whatever it was. That product page looks great. There's just so many product pages that are out there that look great, and look at mine. It's just got like text on it and a link. So,
but hey, it's got at least it has all your other products, images of all your other products there. So.
Right. Yep.
Nice. No, so I take it so that kind of covers like a lot of the core questions. And to sort of now bring it back around, like what's been great is, as you sort of been chatting, you've been talking about like all the sort of amazing people you've artists and editors and other writers you've sort of had involved. But looking into the future, do you have like a particular dream project?
All my projects are dream projects. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
I have one that I've been working on for a few years now. I commissioned the art like 2.5 years ago.
Wow.
And it's one of those where I'm afraid that if I write it, it's not going to be as good as I want it to be. And so I just keep dabbling with it. I've asked Alex Clippinger to help me with it, and so I'm sure he's getting ticked for me not having released it yet. But now Alex is pretty cool. I'm sure he has plenty of his own projects going on. I think every project is a dream project. Like when I did Encounters in the Savage Frontier, that tail off of that actually was inspired by Tony Petrecca's Journey Through the Center of the Underdark. And that whole idea of little encounters was just like a dream come true to work with other writers,
Yeah.
to ask them to write for this project and maybe show other people their writing style. I'm actually working on a Kickstarter, which I hope to launch this fall.
Ooh.
That I think is a pretty good dream project for me, to get my name out there in a different area. I mean, it's still D&D, but
Yeah.
put it on Drive Through RPG. Maybe get my name recognition there, because that's a big thing in this whole thing is social media,
Yeah.
name recognition, product recognition, brand recognition. Um, it's tiring.
I
The
was gonna say,
whole
oh, can
process
you
of doing this is just tiring.
was it share like a little bit of what this Kickstarter project is, or do you want to keep it all hush?
No, we can talk about it. It's a bunch of short adventures,
Awesome.
that can either be run independently, but I'm also going to write it where they're tied together.
Nice.
Uh, One individual is going to need something, and she requires something from each of these adventures, and so
Mhm.
they're going to be scaled from first to, I think, eighth.
Okay.
So eighth level. So you'll be able to progress as you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm currently thinking about the cover for that one. Um, I'm working with a bunch of other writers on the project. I've asked people to write for me, again, because I don't have the time, and I
Mhm.
also, I don't want to give people 10 adventures written by me.
Yeah.
I want them to see different styles, different ideas,
Yeah.
and so that's what I'm doing. That it's worked well for the other collaboration projects I've worked with, so I think it would work well with this too.
No, it's kind of awesome because I don't think I've ever really spoken to someone who's kind of quite content in this sort of like, I guess, like as you said, at the producer role, to be sort of like organizing so many products and just sort of getting so many members of the community involved. It's got to be great to just from just like having these ideas to just see someone like, yeah, I want to work with them, and then you think of an idea and you're like, okay, let's pitch them to this and bring them on board.
Yeah, I was lucky to get some of the writers that I've gotten for my Kickstarter, and
Mhm.
lucky to have worked with a lot of the people who I've worked with on DMsGuild projects.
Yeah.
I think Anne Gregerson is busy now that I probably couldn't hire her again. I think she's just busy enough with her own projects.
Yeah.
Oliver is busy cranking out content. Kat
Yeah.
Evans is amazing what she's bringing out.
Yeah.
And there's so many amazing new writers and creators out there. It's fun to see what they come up with.
So I kind of that kind of I'm going to reshuffle the order of some of my questions quickly, and
Sure.
because you kind of touched on it earlier, but is there anything that you're working on like right now at the moment that's sort of like on the horizon?
War Turtle Brewery,
Nice.
working on that, because I mentioned that one to you
Yeah.
already. I'm working. My brother and I are actually writing something that I don't know when that'll be out. This COVID-19 has really kind of put a wrench in a lot of the plans, because we like to work face to face together and
Yeah.
just bounce off ideas off each other. Let's see. Rimley Farr and I are working on a couple projects, which hopefully will be released in a couple, probably 3 to 6 months, somewhere
Okay.
in there.
Yeah.
I've got the Kickstarter I'm working on. I recently accepted to write an adventure for Gamehole Con.
Ooh.
That's a convention in the U.S.
Yeah.
Went to that convention last year. Had a blast. It's about 5,000 to 6,000 people at the convention,
Mhm.
which is a lot smaller than like Origins or Gen Con.
Yeah.
So it was really nice to be able to walk around and not be just crammed with people.
Mhm.
Great convention. If you ever get to go, it's in Madison, Wisconsin. So
I think was it? They've announced quite a few of the authors for the Gamehole Con this year. There's quite the lineup of
yeah,
authors. So.
yep, great lineup of authors. When I saw who I was going to join, I'm like, oh man, I've got to bring my A game to my
Yeah.
writing. These guys are going to kill me. So
like that, it's bringing everyone up is
I hope they bring me up, because I'm competing with some good people.
no, it sounds like like I said, I guess the theme of like this chat has been like you're busy. You've got a lot of stuff going on. It's
But I
awesome.
like it.
Yeah.
I take that on myself. There's times when I think, or when I may take a week off. I know I should be writing,
Mhm.
but I'll just sit and veg out in front of the TV or stuff like that.
Okay.
I feel bad about it, but I know I need it.
Mhm.
Um, but I enjoy this so much that it's hard to stop. It's
Yeah.
hard to say no, I'm not going to write today, or it's hard to say no, I'm not going to write all summer. I'm not going to write all December.
Yeah.
It's just hard to say that, because I enjoy it so much. And ideally, this would be my full-time job. I'm not there yet. I need
Yeah.
to, hopefully, if my Kickstarter is successful, that'll
Mhm.
help me um, down the road. Working on my own, brand with Jeff Stevens Games.
Yeah.
Trying to, get the name out there and the logo, and people recognize that. But again, it takes time, a lot of work.
Mm. I think again, it's kind of it's weird to think that the DMs Guild has only been around for like 4 years now, or just under 4
4
years.
years. I think it opened. Yeah, it started in 2015, so probably about 4.5 or so.
Yeah. And yeah, the sort of like one of the benefits of the DMs Guild Discord is they do like a lot of people kind of share elements of their success, and to sort of see their like first year's revenue, the second year's revenue, and then sort of.
Which I don't know. Do people want to see that? I mean,
I think
I've seen it in the Discord. I don't know if people want to know that information. If they want to know, how much certain projects cost to create. I know some people could think it as you're flaunting your money.
Yeah.
But it could also show some success.
I think it depends on like how you present it. A lot of the times, if you do it as like a post-mortem of like this is the project as a whole, this is. I think more people would probably find that more useful than like a flaunt, because again, I guess everyone who's reading it kind of wants to imitate or at least learn more about the process, and the more open we can be, the better. In fact, that's more me comparing it to how they do post-mortems in the games industry. Which is very sort of different and not quite.
I know, with a Kickstarter, they'll show a lot of people will show, what costs what and how the money's broken down and that type of thing. So, I think that's kind of nice to see what was put into production. And it also shows, how much you're paying other RPG creators to help you with a product.
Yeah. And on the worst end of the spectrum, it's like it lets you understand that this person doesn't necessarily know how much things cost.
Sometimes I'll set a budget and I'll go over budget.
Yeah,
it's just
It's just that's the nature of developing things. Nice. Well, I guess as we bring the this little chat to a close, are there anyone particular in the DMs Guild community, or not one person, because I no doubt there's many, but who particularly inspires you?
There's just so many. I mean, to list everybody who inspires me on the DMs Guild is just ridiculous. I hate to leave anybody out, but Oliver Clegg has come up with some great stuff. Justice Armand, Anthony Joyce, Kat Evans, Ann Gregerson. I fell in love with Kat Evans and Ann Gregerson's writing. First time I read it, I'm like, these people are great. Clippinger, JVC Perry, Tony Patrick, Empty Black. You name it. Seeing some of the writing that comes in from all these people that I've worked with, I'm like, this is great stuff, and or some may need some tweaks, and I may send that back to them and say, hey, if you did this would be better, or staying within the mechanics, try this instead, and that's just my way of trying to help. I hope people don't take that the wrong way, but there's just so many people, so many great writers, and Gordon McAlpin. I think he just did the Goblin thing that came out right today. I think he did the whole thing, didn't he?
Yeah.
Did he do the writing, the art?
I think most. Yeah, I'm pretty sure. So, funnily enough, to peel back the curtain, I'm speaking with him tomorrow. So,
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. So that product, to be able to have so many hats that you can wear in a project is amazing. I mean, that's saving money right there. If you can do the art, the cartography, the layout, and the writing, and just need to pay for editing, you've got it gold.
And I mean that's like
so much money.
The standard that he's got it to is
it looks amazing.
It does.
It's incredible.
So
I wish I had those talents. Had I known that I was going to be doing this, I would have taken a whole different college level course, college courses.
Well, I mean,
graphic design, art,
To bring like a positive spin on this, if you did have all those talents, you wouldn't be able to work with so many amazing people.
Right. You are correct.
So it's almost like it's a blessing and a curse.
Yes. Yeah. But no, I love working with the people. I love helping out when I can. Paying people something to write for me, giving them that income right away so they can put towards art or whatever they need to on their project, editing. So I enjoy that.
No, honestly, Jeff, this has been an amazing chat. I think we're coming up to like the end of the established time slot. Yeah, no, yeah. Thank you so much for taking the time. I hope I've
Thanks
had
for
fun.
asking me.
Um,
I have too.
yeah, no,
I
this,
love chatting. So if anybody ever wants to chat, just let me know. We can get on Discord or Zoom. If anybody wants to chat about anything. If
yeah,
you want to learn about revenue or costs or expenses that I had last year, let me know, and give you an idea of what money I put into
yeah.
projects as far as in terms of what I make back on them.
Oh, we could have like a little seminar. It could be really,
Yeah.
really. um,
Yeah, hey, we could do that. We could find people in Discord that are we could actually do like a whole Discord chat thing, and
yeah,
I could talk about it. People who are interested, because I know not everybody's interested in hearing numbers,
yeah,
and so that's why I don't share a lot of mine.
yeah. Because I think
Um,
it's for people that's like certain points in their sort of creative career
yeah,
and stuff like that. So yeah.
yeah. But if people want to know numbers, let me know, and we can certainly work out something private to where I can share with you, and then if you feel like you want to share with us, whatever.
Well, no, that's awesome. Nice. It's yeah. We'll keep gates open. Everyone, come on in. That's how we're keeping things over here. Um,
Yeah,
so I do have one last question.
sure.
How do you end a podcast?
How do I end a
Yeah.
podcast? Um, I want to make you cry. You should make somebody cry with your last question. You
Wow.
should make them cry.
Okay. No, that
You need to
okay.
get that
So
emotional.
the guest, making the not the listener, making the guest cry.
Right.
Wow.
Make the guest cry. Like here. I'm gonna try. All right,
Okay.
Mr. Whitby. I appreciate everything you've done for this community.
Yeah.
You have really helped so many people
Oh,
with your podcasts. And just know that from the bottom of my heart, and I'm sure many other people's hearts, that you are appreciated, and we love you.
oh wow. See, it's what's really bad is the fact that when you said gonna make someone cry, my mind went straight to what sort of insult could you say? And you were like that was so wholesome that every time you finish like a sentence, I was expecting, and when's the turn? When's the turn? Is like
Nope.
what is the
Nope.
oh that's
Nope.
oh
I think I speak for every creator who you're going to have on this podcast, that we appreciate you taking the time out of your schedule to talk to us,
what
to show people who we are, and discuss things with
what
you.
oh shucks. Oh, I'm gonna have to, dude. I'm gonna have to scrap all the insults I had in my head. Oh, what
So
do you
that
know?
should be how you end your podcast from now on. You need to make somebody cry. I think I can't remember what show what show it is. Well, actually, it was from Jerry Maguire,
Oh, really?
where there's like this interview guy who always makes his interviewees cry. And so Cuba Gooding Jr. goes on there, and he's like, "You're not gonna make me cry, man. You're not gonna make me cry." And so he does make him cry, and so that's kind of where I thought this would all come from. But
So, okay. Well, I'm gonna give it a go. I'm gonna try. I've let me end the podcast first, and then my
okay.
closing statement. So, thank you so much for listening. So yeah, I've been Matthew Whitby. Before I even forget, Jeff, how can people hear about your amazing work?
I'm on Twitter. I've got the worst Twitter handle ever. It's at jcorvinstevens, JCorvinStevens. And then you can also go to my website. I recently created a website. My brother did it for me. It's jeffstevensgames.com. And from there, you can sign up for my newsletter. You can see my products that I've got out, new products that pop out. But the newsletter, I try and give people a special discount whenever I release a new product. And, I may send out some free stuff every once in a while, or some thoughts on the industry, that type of thing every once in a while. But it's not a very planned newsletter. It just kind of comes out here and there. So
The website is very snazzy. I was scrolling through it earlier.
thank you.
Nice. But no, and yeah. Well, and I've been your host, Matthew Whitby. Yeah, you can find me at Whitby Writes. I'm one of those people who just put Writes on the end of their surname, and that's all I do. And yeah, honestly, Jeff, thank you so much for everything you do for this community. Being able to sort of give back to the community and bring so many up and coming creators, and giving people a chance and getting involved in such amazing products that keep upping the quality. Thank you.
So make me cry, man.
Yeah.